Now, straight off the bat, the car runs smoothly, perfectly. Pulls smoothly, efficiently. I think it's a win. I think it's a win for this install. What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another video. If you guys are tuning in, today we are in the M4 and we're gonna be focusing on the Kies Motorsport Crank Seal Belt Guard. Now, if you guys are new to the channel, my name's Alex. Go down, hit that subscribe button, show some love, and let's get straight to the install. Now, if you're tuning into the channel, we have some goodies for today for the M4. To all my S55 owners, if you guys are familiar with your maintenance, these tend to start cracking, and over time, once they do crack and snap, there's a high chance that part of this belt can get sucked up into your crank pulley, causing internal damage. Due to that, one preventative maintenance is this Kies Motorsport crank pulley belt plate. What this does is basically this slides right over your crank pulley, and this basically stops the belt from sliding in, as the belt basically glides over this. Without the actual Kies Motorsport belt plate, this would just ride over your crank pulley, and if this were to snap, it basically gets sucked in. Now, basically, this is an extra layer of protection for your S55s. Now, the first thing you do want to do prior to modifying your S55s is your crank hub. This car is crank hub. This motor has the crank hub. Apart from that, you do want to get this. I believe it's preventative maintenance, because you don't want your motor going out, and you don't want your serpentine belt going out and taking your motor out with it. I think the only thing left to do to bulletproof this engine completely would obviously be adding this. Being that we're going to be inside the engine bay, things are going to be off, I said, why not? Might as well just do the preventative maintenance. Got myself a serpentine belt, OEM from the factory. Same thing with the belt tensioner. These also are recommended to be swapped out. Another preventative maintenance. All of this stuff will be linked in the description below. Prior to getting started, we are gonna have to take off our carbon brace, our intake, which is located on top, because we're gonna have to work our way down there. If you don't already know, you gotta take off your engine cowl panels, one there, bolts up there, bolts right here, and this pops off, and then we can take off our intake. This is one big thing to take note of. I've honestly been lagging on it, but I know that this is notorious for these S55s, the N54s. I wanna say the N55s as well, but with the serpentine belt snapping, especially if you're modified, you have high power, or you just have high mileage, eventually, you know, rubber goes out and it starts to crack, it starts to decay. But rather than risking the fact of having serpentine belt getting lodged up into your crank pulley, I would recommend this. A lot of people just say, oh, my S55 is crank hub, that's all I gotta worry about, it's bulletproof. It's not bulletproof until you get your crank hub done and you have this belt cover. That's just my word of advice to all my S55 owners. You know, being that I am an owner of one, it's always been an issue that's kind of like in the back of my mind. But now that I can actually install this, once I have this on, and knowing that my car is both cranked hub and with the Kies Motorsport belt cover, I'll have peace of mind when ripping it down the road. Now, like I said prior, we're gonna be taking off these cowl panels, one on each side, and then we're gonna be adjusting this carbon brace. Once this is off, we can focus on the intake. Now, we're gonna have to remove this sensor right here, remove this vacuum line, and loosen up this hose clamp on this side, as well as this one right here. Intake is out. Now, being that we're gonna be addressing our tensioner, so we're gonna be removing that, swapping it out with an OEM one, a brand new one. Serpentine belt right here is gonna get replaced. For this to happen though, we're gonna take off that 10mm down here. See that 10mm right there? We're gonna loosen that up. That way we can move this around. This will also be loosened. Some oil may come down, so I'm gonna grab a rag. But main objective is to take off the crank pulley. Once taking off that, we will be able to install our belt plate behind that and then reinstall everything, just because it is kind of tight. For the water pump, you're gonna have to spin over the crank. Water pulley bolt should be facing towards the crank. Then you loosen up these 4 bolts, and continuously cranking the crank, you'll be able to loosen this up. This will come off, and after that, we can take off the crank pulley. Being that you need as much space as possible to get your hand, but also to take off your crank pulley, you are gonna have to take off your fan assembly. By doing so, you gotta go under. You're gonna have to remove your skid plate for your oil cooler, and it's 2 T25s down below. Once removing those, the only thing left is gonna be unclipping your water pump for your coolant, and this should basically just slide up. Quick look from down below. As I was stating, you are gonna take off these 2 star bits. It's gonna be a T25 on this side and a T25 on this side. This is what's basically holding up your fan assembly, and you're gonna have to take off another T35. I honestly don't know how people were able to manage to get the radiator fan out without removing these coolant hoses. Fortunately for me, I removed them and I was able to just pop it out. But if you guys can manage to maneuver it through, by all means. I did take off top one and the bottom one. and then it was able to slide out. Next thing's next, moving these 4 bolts, taking this belt off. We look in here, we have our bolts. So we're gonna be taking all 8 of those out. Crank pulley should come off. And then after that, we can install our Serpentine belt plate. The AC belt comes loose, we can pop this off. So next thing's next, we're gonna take off the tensioner. Grab yourself a T60. We're gonna basically relieve some tension, but have an Allen key ready so you can just lodge this in, torque this down, Allen key, and you're good. All right, y'all, Serpentine belt is out. Now that it is out, good time to check your alternator bearing. Make sure there's no movement or noise coming from it. Mine seems to be good. Check also any other pulleys. Now we can definitely focus on the crank pulley. So it's gonna be 8 E10 bolts. Take all those off. Once those 8 are off, pretty sure this is just gonna pop off. And then we can show you guys exactly where the plate goes and how it's gonna be addressed and installed. All right, all of our 8 bolts are out. This would be a good time to get a reference of how your pulley is positioned, and either grab a Sharpie or marker or a paint marker, mark it up so you know exactly how the orientation goes once installing it back. So here we go, crank pulley is out. All right, so only thing left now to do, like I said, we're gonna clean this whole surface right here. But you guys can see this is basically your front main seal. Chances are there could be debris that gets caught up behind the crank pulley, and as this is rotating, it basically gets sucked in with our crank guard. We're gonna be able to protect that. We are gonna have to address these 2 bolts. They are E12s, one right here and the other one's right here. Once we get those off, it really just slides on, and it comes with the acquired hardware for installation. So let's take a quick look at what comes in the box. So in the box we find our crank guard seal as well as the supplied hardware. These are slightly extended to compensate for the thickness of this belt or this plate right here. Therefore they provide the hardware, and a Kies Motorsport jet tag. OEM ones are out, so now we can basically throw this on. All right, you guys, so the moment of truth, literally all of this just for this, but I'm telling you guys, this is going to save you guys a lot of money in the long run, just like if you were to do your crank hub. Like I stated prior, engine's already cranked. All we need is this, and let me show you guys just how simple it is to install it. So it glides over, and it literally slides into the notches that are already ingrained where the guard sealed would, where the seal guard would be, and just like that. Obviously it doesn't have the plates or anything, or the bolts I would say, but take a look at that. Definitely an underrated modification for you guys. Something you guys are definitely not going to see once the crank pulley is on, because it's literally hidden behind. But look, now there's literally 0 to no space for any belt to get sucked in, and that's basically this part's role, to guard that, protect it. And because it's perfectly machined, the crank pulley basically slides right over and there's no interference. So all we're going to do now, put those bolts in, 2 bolts, tighten that up. Our Kies Motorsport Belt Guard is in, bolts are in. You're going to want to snug those up to 22 Newton meters. I'm going to grab my torque wrench, we're going to snug those up, and after that it's really just reversing the disassembly because we're basically guarded up and we're good to go. Crank guard's in, torqued it up, 22 Newton meters, like I said. After that, we can now slap on our crank pulley. I'm gonna drop the diagram for the bolt orientation as well as the foot pounds that you need when bolting this back down. Okay, so all our bolts are in. We're gonna torque these down to 35 Newton meters. All right, so there you guys have it. Crank pulley is in. Now we focus on the actual tensioner. So E12, we're gonna loosen that up, take that out. Both this and the Serpentine belt, all brand new and ready to go. Okay, so tensioner's out. Like I said, E12, you take out the bolt. One thing to note though, when you do buy one, you are gonna have to replace this. I went to BMW directly, so they gave me a brand new one just because I believe it's aluminum or something. So once torqued down, it loses its internal integrity. So get yourself a new one. All right, so quick reference for you guys. Belt assembly basically. So it goes crank pulley, and the belt goes over this tensioner down here, wraps around the AC compressor, down back under the tensioner, up and over the alternator, and under this tensioner here, which, like I said, once we remove this pin, it should all just work perfectly, and Serpentine belt should be in. Is just AC belt, throw that on, crank over the crank pulley so that way this thing can add tension to itself, and then we're gonna slide in the 4 bolts. I'm thinking of upgrading my oil housing, I want to say, to the Muscleman one. I would say Serpentine belt is on, AC belt's on, our crank belt guard is on. I was saying Muscleman thermostat. I'm gonna be swapping out my OEM one due to the fact that I already have the oil lines off and this coolant hose a little loose, it's easier to get to. It's basically 3 E12s. You're then gonna swap in your new Musselman thermostat. Definitely a dope upgrade, but also a flashy upgrade, because being that this is like a polished machine finish compared to the OEM like galvanized oil housing, we're gonna be upgrading this one, but also dropping oil temperatures. So I'm gonna give you guys a quick demonstration. Like I said, just 3 E12 bolts, one on each side and then one in the bottom down here. Once this slips off, we literally just line this up with the new gasket, swap on the new gasket, but also these 2 other gaskets that go onto the oil return lines. You don't want to forget that, because then you're gonna have oil leakage. 3rd bolt. So 3 bolts, and then we can slowly release this. A little bit of oil, not too bad. One thing to note though, you guys saw when I pulled it off, my old gasket stayed on, so we're gonna be sure to take this one off. That way we can replace it with the new one. Now, quick comparison. It is a rather drastic change. This right here is the OEM one. You guys can see we have our spring right there, which basically actuates once the oil is up to temp and allows flow of the oil. But if you guys look at the Musselman one, it's literally all one solid piece with only a inlet and an outlet, meaning that oil enters through, I'm not sure if it's this side or this side, point is it enters through one side and comes out the other side. Now, it states that oil temperatures drop just because the spring in this one opens up earlier, allowing for your oil to cool off quicker. But it's just crazy to think, you know, this is OEM and this is aftermarket. We're gonna slap on our new gaskets. Like I said, this gasket is gonna go up on here. This is a good time to clean that out. We're gonna clean that up before properly installing this. Once it's relatively clean, the gasket really only goes in one way. So, and once it's in, we can grab our new Musselman thermostat. So we're gonna slide this on right there. Now, being that I did not opt out for the upgraded installation kit, I believe it comes with titanium bolts. I'm gonna be reusing the factory OEM ones. Now we're gonna go in, torque this down. Something to note is the Musselman one comes with its own bolt. You guys can see it's a bit longer. If you guys try to install the OEM one, being that it has a washer, it won't fit all the way flush and it won't reach the bottom. So be sure to swap it out and install your provided one from Musselman. Everything is back on. Quickly rinse the car. We topped off our oil from the oil that we lost from the thermostat. We topped off our coolant from the coolant that we dropped, obviously, when taking out the radiator. But the Kies Motorsport crank belt pulley or crank belt guard is on. All that's left now is really just to take it for a test drive, see how the Musselman thermostat performs, and obviously, you know, make sure that everything runs perfectly now that we have our belt guard in. Now, straight off the bat, the car runs smoothly, perfectly. One big thing I've noticed, obviously being that we installed the Musselman thermostat, is that the oil temps are rather low and staying below temperature. Typically, the car would run around at 220, 215 from what I recall previously. We got some K-band. But now it reads no higher than like 180, I would say. Coming to a tunnel, give you guys a quick pull. Ooh, kind of bumpy here in the city, and you guys know we're static, so let me mute the K-band. Man, that thing sounds nice though. A couple more pulls for you guys, but overall the car's running smooth, perfectly. No hiccups or anything. Oil temps are good. Idling is good. Yeah, I would truly recommend this. It takes a bit of time to install it, but I think, like I said, if you're gonna tackle on as many things as you can, being that you're gonna have a lot of parts out of the car and you're gonna have a lot of room, a lot of space to work with. So pulls smoothly, efficiently. I think it's a win. I think it's a win for this install. More thorough testing will come from it. It's too bad there's traffic right now. I should have known it's prime time traffic rush hour right now, but it's okay. But oil temps have been keeping rather cool. It hasn't dropped or hasn't risen anything over the 200 mark, and it's keeping, and once it does hit that 200 mark, it just drops back down. I recommend it if you want to keep your oil temps down at lower operating temperatures, then I would recommend it, you know. I know they use this highly when it comes to track, but in this case, I mean, city driving, highway driving, it'll do. I recommend it. Now, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and comment down below if you guys need any help, tips, tricks, or any future videos that you guys would like to see. So with that being said, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and keep it authentic, y'all. Till the next one, peace.